Hello everyone, welcome to my messy studio. My name is Mark, and I'm an artist and an art professor. One of my favorite sketching media, and the subject of many of my tutorials, is a combination of pen and watercolor. It's a fun, versatile way of working, and I love the way the sharp, energetic line work contrasts with soft, flowing washes. But this is a medium that unfortunately isn't the most convenient, requiring brushes, palettes, paper towels, and most importantly, a paper that holds up to aqueous media. But what if you have none of those things and are working on regular drawing paper, and just want to add a splash of color and depth to your pen and ink work? Well, in this short lesson, I have just the technique for you. It works on regular drawing paper, is easy to do, and uses common materials that you probably already have on hand. Let's get started. This technique combines materials that are usually not seen together: pen and ink and chalk pastels. Crazy, I know, but bear with me because I've been doing this for some time and it's yielded some very interesting results. Here's some other drawings that I did with it. This medium is equally good for quicker drawings, such as this one, but also can be used for longer, more finished work. And though I haven't tried it yet, I suspect it would be great for a large variety of subject matter, including urban sketching and landscape. Here are the materials used in this technique. You're going to need drawing paper. Any kind will do, but since we're applying ink, you're going to want something relatively smooth and, to aid with contrast, bright white. Then you're going to need some cheap pastels. Prismacolor new pastels work great for this, but in this case I'm using a cheap set made by Faber-Castell. The colors you choose are up to you. If you'd like a traditional look, stick with colors that are more neutral: red oxide, burnt sienna, burnt umber, or gray. If you want a more intense, modern look, choose colors that are more saturated. You're also going to need a sheet of paper towels. Any type will do. A nylon eraser, like this one, will also be necessary, and perhaps a kneaded eraser, depending on what kind of work you're doing. Eraser holders like these might also be super helpful, particularly if you're one of those people that are detail-oriented. Then you're also going to need a charcoal pencil, one on the harder side, that can be used to do the underdrawing. And then, since this is partially a pen and ink technique, you're going to need a pen filled with dark-colored ink. This can be a rollerball, a felt tip, a dip pen, or a fountain pen. I'm going to use my TWSBI Eco for this demo, filled with Noodler's black ink. Since I'm working on a darker ground, I'm going to use a pen with enough line weight to show clearly, so a medium tip will probably work best. To prepare the drawing surface, simply smear the pastel onto the paper and then use the paper towel to rub it in. Keep rubbing until the pigment particles work themselves into the paper fibers, creating an even surface that looks like it was toned with wash. The exact value is up to you, but I find that something in the middle works best. Too dark and the pen will get lost. Too light and the work will lack contrast. Build up the values in steps by applying the pastel, smearing, and then applying more if you need to make the values darker. Whatever value you choose, keep rubbing the pastel into the paper until it can't be removed with a paper towel. Then shake off the excess and wipe it away. Once the paper has essentially been stained with the pastel, it's ready to draw on. As should come as no surprise, the eraser becomes a drawing tool, allowing you to introduce lighter values. Hard erasers do the best job of erasing the ground color, but kneaded erasers make it easier to create smooth, wash-like gradations in value. An eraser holder will also allow you to erase sharp details or even create hatched strokes. The technique is very simple. The underdrawing is done with a light charcoal pencil. These marks can be blended away with a paper towel after they're no longer needed. Then apply your hatching. There's a reason why this technique is so unusual. Chalk and ink usually don't play well together, with chalk particles potentially clogging your pen or interfering with the even application of ink. However, in this case, the pastel particles are embedded in the paper fibers and are safely out of the way, unable to interfere with the inking process, and you'll find that the ink lays down in the same way it would on normal paper. Since you're working on a darker tone, I recommend using dark ink, but it doesn't necessarily have to be black, and I've had success with a variety of colors. Once the inking is done, you can start erasing out the lighter values to get a drawing with a full range of values. After erasing out, you can always go back in with your pen to increase contrast and to add detail. Let me show you how this works in practice. For this figure drawing, I use a combination of dark blue and purple pastels. While a single color can certainly be used, combining colors, especially if done in layers, will give a more complex surface with delicate variations of color. One of the great things about this technique is the ability to get the exact value and color you want, so experiment with different pastel combinations until you arrive at that perfect tone. Or for restless spirits, such as myself, you can change colors with every single drawing. Again, since the pastel particles are stuck in the paper fibers, they don't affect the pen in any way. That said, pastel might have abrasive properties, so if you're going to use a fountain pen, stick with something relatively inexpensive. One tricky thing when working on a toned ground is anticipating what the values need to be. Since the ground color is already a mid-tone, the initial shadow values you put down might seem like they're not dark enough, tricking you into over-darkening your shadows. The problem is, you often don't realize that you've made this error until you've added the lighter values. If I was shading with charcoal, I would be able to lighten my shadows if they went too dark. Unfortunately, that is not a possibility here. But you can prevent yourself from making this mistake by working back and forth between inking and erasing, as opposed to completing the inking stage all at once. This allows you to compare the shadows and lights and better gauge just how dark the shadows need to go. So my advice, which I'm not really following here, is to shade a little bit and then erase a little bit and keep alternating until you get the desired contrast. Now I'm starting on the erasing process using my eraser holder. On smaller drawings, such as this one, the holder is pretty much all you'll need, but I recommend having a slightly larger regular eraser for larger drawings. As I finish up this drawing, let's talk about why I think this technique might be a useful addition to your sketching repertoire. The first advantage is the ease of use and portability. While wash requires brushes, a palette, paper towels, and paper that is water-friendly, this method, once you've toned the paper, only requires a pen and an eraser and works on regular drawing paper. And since the paper can be toned well ahead of time, this technique is tremendously portable and easy to use anywhere, requiring you to carry only an eraser and a pen. Secondly, unlike wash, which can be tricky to control and correct, this technique allows you to build the values and the lights very gradually and to create smooth transitions. And with a little compact paper towel, you can even make corrections, at least in the lighter values. Thirdly, I think the results are pretty interesting. I enjoy the contrast between the sharp, energetic strokes of the pen and the delicate gradations of chalk ground. Here's my finished drawing, which hopefully demonstrates the effectiveness of this method. I also think that there's a lot of potential to develop this technique in other directions. For example, you can, toward the end of the drawing, add touches of additional color. In this portrait, I added a little bit of red with a pastel pencil, giving the skin tones a little bit of warmth. I think the color in this stage should be very limited, since pastel is opaque and you don't want to obscure the lines. Perhaps even more color can be put in using pencils that are more transparent, such as wax-based color pencils. But this is something I'll leave to others to experiment with. I hope this tutorial inspired you to give this technique a try, and if you do, let me know how it goes, and if you found ways to do it even better. To my mind, the best learning environments are those where information can flow in three ways, not only from instructor to student, but also student to student and student to instructor. And it's my goal for this channel to create a platform for like-minded people to exchange ideas and grow as artists together. Thanks so much for watching, and see you back in my messy studio very soon.